plagued by reboots, haunted by sequels, dominated by the same old shit. Get ready for an original podcast that will gouge out your eyeballs and skull fuck you. Starring Ginger Josh, Adam the Hare, and introducing the immortal Frank. Hold on to your butts. It's the Game Rage Movies TV Podcast. Oh man, again, I just love this fucking music on this. Welcome everyone to Game Rage Movies /TV. This, I don't know what number it is, but today we're going to be talking about, if you didn't already read the title,
Godzilla.
Yes, Godzilla. No, I'm just kidding. Today we're going to talk about Civil War, the movie, and it's not the Marvel Civil War, and it's not the fucking Civil War from the 1800s. It's the new movie that just came out in theaters.
Yeah, from A24.
From A24 called Civil War. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say, if anyone else out there would like to, or if anyone else out there thinks that we're pretty good and you want to listen to other pretty all right podcasts, then you should go listen to our other podcasts, such as Game Rage Wrestling, about pro wrestling, Anime Syndicate, all about anime, the BFN show, All Gas No Trash. Well, BFN show doesn't have a topic; it's just kind of random butt fuckery. But all gas. I mean, it's true. All Gas No Trash, which is our music centered podcast, which is highly curated by Adam and to perfection. So if you want to listen to that shit, go to GameRageMagazine.com or just look in all of your little things that you listen to this on. Spotify seems to be the number one thing people listen to us on. So if you're on Spotify, just type in Game Rage whatever and it'll pop up, and I'm sure all our stuff's on there. So anyways, yeah, go listen to us and then follow us on the social medias and all that good stuff if you want to. Game Rage Magazine and All Gas No Trash official for Adam.
All right, I'm throwing out an idea.
Plugs. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm throwing out an idea. Well, I forgot to mention just some of the topics that we talked about for the other podcast. For All Gas No Trash, we talked about Coachella, and I forgot what else. The future of music.
Yeah.
And what did you guys talk about on the Anime Syndicate?
Oh, we talked about the most recent episode that's coming out alongside this episode was Overlord Season 1.
Okay, cool. And then also in conjunction with the Game Rage Movies and TV podcast, there's also the ongoing series, the ongoing review of
Shogun.
Hell of a Boss.
Oh, well, no, Boss. We already finished that because those are done.
Oh, okay, they're all done. Never mind. Well, you can check back on them.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Hell of a Boss hasn't finished its season 2, but we've reviewed everything that's already out.
Okay, that's fine.
Further on this show. And we're also doing, Shogun on our previous episodes. Excellent fucking show. Stay tuned for episodes 9 and 10, the final episodes, which will be coming out
I'm
next
rock
week.
Hard for that.
Dude, so am I. It's gonna be a blast. I can't wait. So anyways, yeah. All right. Well,
okay, before we start.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to throw out a random idea.
Okay.
I don't know how we can do this. It's either going to be maybe it actually turns into like an old time radio thing.
Okay.
But we should do the 1930s voices, and it'll be I don't know why I'm just thinking it's going to be called the Good Buddy Show. It's like, hey, buddy,
Hey, there, what's happening in the news today, there, fella?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if that becomes a segment where we tease things.
Oh, man.
Like for the other podcast.
Yeah, maybe that's that's like the commercial for everything is we do it in, hello and welcome to the Good Buddy Hour.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I don't know where to go with that, but we always do stupid. Talking the 1930s voice and real swell fella, the newfangled tunes.
Hey, you want to listen to a pretty all right podcast about wrestling, do you?
There's something to be done with that.
I agree. I think that is. So stay tuned for that because we're gonna flesh that out after we're done recording this. So
now the movie.
Anyways, all right, yeah. So let's get down to business here.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
So Civil War the movie.
Tell me about your experience before we even get to the movie.
Of going to the movie.
Yeah.
All right. So I went and saw it with my dad because he really wanted to go see it. So I said, all right, cool. I mean, he paid for it. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to say no to a free movie. And then also, because if he didn't want to go see it, you and I were just going to probably go see it. And then basically sit separately like we always do. So it's basically like I'm seeing the movie by myself. So I was like, whatever, he wants to go. So we went to the Newport Theater, and man, already right off the bat, started off bad. The kid at the fucking thing scanned the ticket, and then he was like, okay, yeah, you're theater number 3, which is this way. And I'm like, well, the sign over here says theater 3 is this way. And he's like, oh, no, it's this way. And so I said, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, all right. So we go, and, you know, the old man wanted to get popcorn, so we got popcorn. And this motherfucker's trying to buy like 2 buckets of popcorn. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to eat fucking that much popcorn. So just let's just split one. How about that, fatty? All right, let's just split one. Oh, yeah, all right, good idea. So we'd get that, and then he's like, okay, which way did you say to go? And I said, well, he said this way, it's theater 3, and he's but the sign says that. And I said, yeah, you were there for the whole exchange I had with the guy. Why are you acting like this is new information? He says it's this way, so what do you want to do? All right, well, let's go this way. So we go that way. Sure enough, there's no theater 3 over there. So what do? We turn back around, go back to where the sign is, and find theater 3. Now, I will say, for people who haven't been to this Newport, it's the Newport Regal Big 6 or something like that.
Okay.
And it's laid out very weird. Like, I've never been in a movie theater that's been laid out like this. All the theaters are essentially in a separate building that's not connected to the main building. So there's this main building that's got the concession stand and essentially like the box office, right? Where you buy tickets. And then you have to go out double doors of that building and cross through an atrium to 2 other buildings that house, well, there's like 5 other buildings because, like I said, each theater has its own like building. And so luckily theater 3 was in the front, the first building, and then the one we went to was like 2, and I think 1 was in the back, and 4, 5, and 6 were spread out somewhere else. But you had to like go upstairs, you had to go through mazes and shit to get to the other ones. And I said, okay, wow, this is pretty interesting. I wonder why the fuck they built it like this. Maybe I kind of have a feeling that they were an infill, so whatever complex was already there, they were just like, hey, you know what? We could fit 1 theater inside each of these buildings. Fuck it. Let's just get this whole complex. So that's kind of why I think it might be laid out that way. But anyway, so it was already weird. We go in there, but it was great though, because there was like 5 people in there on a fucking Saturday. That I think we went at 3 was the showing, and there's nobody. I will say that the guy behind us fell asleep and was snoring fucking insanely loud.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't know. Now again, the guy was old. All right, so I mean, he was seriously like 70. I mean, he was old. So I gave him a pass because I'm like, all right. I mean, again, the movie was loud as fuck. So I don't know how you could fall asleep during a fucking action movie, essentially. So I don't know. But anyway, other than that, I mean, the seats are great. They're nice. It's like those recliner chairs. Like, it's fucking great. So for $18, which is what you're gonna pay wherever else you go. I mean, yes, recliner chairs and, you know, whatever. I don't know. So, I mean, you went to go see it at the bootleg theater, so yeah, pretty much, right? So, well, how was your experience?
Okay, so
I assume there's a story or something. That's why you asked me.
well, I mean, I paid like $12.
Okay. I mean, technically, I paid nothing, but you know.
Oh yeah, yours is free, but yeah, dude. So I paid for. I went through Fandango to buy the ticket. My favorite part was that there was a fucking 1,000 seats, all open, all open. So buy my ticket. I guess this is kind of strange for me now because there used to be attendees at the block or the box office, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's all gone.
Gone. Yeah.
You walk in and you look at the little kiosk thing to see if you could buy your tickets. And I was trying to look for the thing because I had a QR code.
Yeah.
And there's nobody attending to that area to
like scan you in.
You could borderline just walk. I feel like you could just borderline walk into whatever movie you want. But I went to go ask around. I'm like, hey, well, where's the person that takes care of the QR codes to make sure the person, or you go to your assigned seating or your theater. But luckily, the person had like a QR scanner, whatever. So then I walk into the theater. And then, man, I'll tell you what, it does bother me that the movie started at 7:05.
Right. Yeah.
And I was thinking they already showed trailers. they showed trailers for different movies, and then they showed more fucking trailers at the start of the movie time, or the start time. And that was like an additional 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to just go walk out and wait for all the stuff to clear out and then just come back. But I don't know if I don't know if all movie trailers are 2 minutes or if they're all time different. So
yeah.
I feel like if it's between 25 and 30 minutes, I'm going to either be ahead or behind and miss part of. Yeah, so
Yeah.
You can't time it.
You can't. And I noticed that as well, that there were seemingly an excessive amount of trailers. And again, like we kind of talked about this before, but why don't you just start the fucking trailers 30 minutes early so the movie starts at, like, our movie was supposed to start at 3:10 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't start till like almost 3:40. And I'm like they actually rolled the actual movie. Yes, the preview started at 3:10. And that's because I told him because we were gonna go at 1:30, and I said I got there to drop off Chloe to hang out with my mom. I got there at 1:00, and the movie theater is like 15-20 minutes away. Oh, well, we're gonna get there barely on time. And I said, dude, the fucking movie, they play a shit ton of trailers and they don't start them until the start time. So I said, we'll get there and have plenty of time to spare. We'll still probably end up watching 3 or 4 of these fucking trailers. And so he's like, no, let's just wait. So we waited till the 3:10. But yeah, then we had to sit through 30 fucking minutes of trailers. And sure, there was one trailer that was kind of funny, which was the Deadpool Wolverine trailer. But the trailer just didn't even make sense to me. I don't know why they chose like this narrative for the trailer. It didn't make sense. I mean, yeah, it was the R-rated like Red Band trailer, so it was cool to see, but I don't know. It just was like, man. And then there was a Kevin Costner movie that's like going to be in 2 parts. It's kind of like a Western.
Okay.
That was also shown. I don't know if they showed that one in yours. You know, we should, next time we go separately, we should see write down what the trailers are that they showed and see if you see all those same ones. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think I got the Deadpool. I mean, maybe I didn't leave, or maybe I wasn't in the theater early enough to see the trailer, but I didn't get it.
Interesting. But yeah, so that was in there for sure. There was like 2 or 3 R-rated like Red Band trailers.
Okay.
Which was kind of cool. I mean, yeah, it is an R-rated movie, so like they can show that shit on there, which, you know, is cool. But the next movie that he wants to go see, because we saw a trailer for this and I was like, damn, this looks pretty good too, which is it's the what is it? The Center for Ungentlemanly Warfare or something like that.
Oh,
and it's about the first like British special operations unit during World War II and all the shit that they did.
Okay.
And it's got Henry Cavill and like it looks pretty good. I saw the trailer. They showed the trailer and I said, all right, man, we should probably go see it. So I think next week me and him are gonna go watch that movie. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe you should fucking go see that if it looks appealing to you. We can talk about it. No.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've been meaning to get around to watching and I think at this point it's probably I think they're a trilogy or tied to one another. Is the movie, it was called Maxine something, but it has to do with this character from Pearl and this movie called X. It's like a psychological thriller.
Is that one where the trailer was like the Night Stalker or whatever, and it's this girl who was a porn star?
Yeah.
So that's a trilogy?
Yeah, I think so.
I had never heard of this thing before, and I thought this was just some one-off. And I was like, well, I didn't even understand that fucking trailer, because I was like, is this movie about like the Night Stalker, or is this movie about this chick who's a porn star? Is she the Night Stalker? I don't know.
Yeah, I've never gotten around to seeing the other 2 movies that are tied to it, because it's the same character.
I mean, it did look fairly interesting. I mean, but I mean, shit, maybe we should do.
Yeah, but I gotta watch the other 2.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should do the other 2, and then we could do. Shit, it's just more episodes.
Oh, true. Yeah.
You know? And then we could go see that one when it comes out.
All right. Maybe it's a good thing I haven't seen those movies up until this point. So yeah, that was one movie that I was interested in. But
yeah, it seemed intriguing. And then the one about there was one that was about these kids that it's like they're watching some TV show and they're not. Like it's like they're living 2 lives. They're like living the lives of the kids in the TV show, but they don't like necessarily associate it for some. I don't know. It's like a weird. It's like an interdimensional thing or some shit. I don't know. But that one looked interesting. I mean, yeah, an original concept that isn't a sequel. It isn't a prequel. It's not a fucking remake. So I mean, I'm in favor of these movies. I don't care really if they're good or not. I'd rather see shit that's original.
Yeah, dude, that is like the crux of everything for me as far as anything goes.
Yeah.
I will literally take fucking, in terms of music, I will take new and different original over, I mean, even if it's shit, dude.
Yeah.
I will take that over rehashing old shit.
Yeah.
Movies, same thing.
Same deal. Yeah. I'd rather listen, I love Jurassic Park, but like I'd rather go see this movie about these kids in this fucking TV show thing because that's weird and it doesn't make sense. And it's like, cool, this is an original story that I haven't seen before, than see Jurassic Park 9.
Yeah.
All right. Like I know what I'm getting. Listen, yeah, I do want to see Jurassic Park or whatever next one comes out because I love those. But I'd rather see somebody give some money to some people to make some original shit. You know, that's one thing that was been sorely lacking. And it's interesting to see that it's kind of, and all these movies are A24. So I have a feeling that A24 is pretty much the only studio
Trying to do different things.
that's trying to give people, you know, take risks, I guess, on certain things. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
So I could support that. I wonder, we should try to get somebody from A24 to see if they want to do an interview.
Fuck yeah, that
be
sounds
cool.
good.
So and find out if that's the truth. Find out if we're right.
Yeah.
So anyways, all right. So,
Wait,
go ahead.
didn't get to finish.
Oh yeah, shit, my bad. I cut you off.
Oh yeah. So
Oh shit, that was the cover. I'll get it.
all right. Yeah, so I went inside the theater and thousands of, well, not thousands, the dozens, the dozens. There was a whole bunch of seats available when I purchased the fucking thing. And I'm sure as tickets are being purchased, you get to sit anywhere you fucking want, right?
Yeah.
Anywhere you want. And of course, I picked the top row because I like sitting all the way in the back, knowing that nobody's going to put their feet up on my seat or anything like that.
True.
And I see people walking up, and I'm thinking, oh, please don't come to my fucking row. Please don't. So then they start filing in, and they're 2 or 3 rows ahead of me. I'm thinking, all right, cool. I'm going to watch this movie undisturbed.
Yeah.
In the last 10 minutes, a father and a son walk in, and they start coming up, and I'm thinking, ah, shit, man, here it comes. And sure enough, they cross over to me, and the motherfucker, the son, is sitting 1 seat over from me. Why do people have to do that? There's 1,000 other seats that you could sit in with a 2 to 3 seat buffer, so you don't have to sit next to anybody. I don't get that, dude. I don't get that. There was 15 people, if that, maybe even 10. And there's people that still choose to sit 1 seat away from you, dude. I don't fucking get that.
I will completely agree with you. I have not gone into movies because that's happened. Because I'll be looking and checking, and like with Star Wars, when they released Return of the Jedi again, I literally bought the tickets and I was the only one in the theater. And I was going to go by myself to see it because Frank didn't want to go and then nobody wanted to go. So I was like, I go by myself. And I was like, this will be really fucking cool. And I'm getting ready to leave. And I'm like, let me just check the thing. And I look, and the only other seats that have been purchased were the 6 seats directly next to me. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to sit next to assholes. So I said, oh, I'll just scoot over more. And then as I was walking out the doors, let me just check it again. And guess what? Somebody bought the other 3 seats on the other side of me. So all the people, we were all in the same fucking row. And I said, I said, fuck it. I know I could just sit somewhere else, but I don't want to go to a movie and see a movie with people that are like that do that. Because they're probably going to be loud and piss me off. So God damn it, I can't. So I didn't even go. And like with fucking what do you call it? There was another movie that we fucking saw that
Godzilla?
Yeah, it was Godzilla, and the fucking right fucking neck, like all the open seats in this fucking theater, and you have to sit right fucking next to us. Are you crazy? Are you high? So I don't know. That for sure pisses me off. But either way, I mean, we saw the movie, so
Yeah, movie time.
yeah,
All right.
movie time. All right, so the movie.
Do you want? Are we talking scores first, or are we saving that for the end?
No, let's just save that for the end.
Okay.
I mean, let's go through it and give our, ups and downs, and we'll give the synopsis of the movie.
Okay.
Basically, it's obviously the United States is in a civil war. That's basically the premise of the movie. And what's funny is it's the Western forces, which is the combo of California and Texas.
The powerhouse states.
The powerhouse fucking states.
The juggernauts.
They basically form up. They say, hey, we're seceding from the Union. You guys can get fucked. And this is the other thing. we don't get any of the backstory. They don't spoon feed you anything, which honestly I kind of like that.
I respect it.
It's letting the audience decide how we got there. And I mean, they're also leaving it open to where if this movie does well, they're setting themselves up to fucking make a prequel and they can fucking talk about how it happened. You know, I don't know. But either way, they go ahead and secede from the Union for whatever reason. We don't know.
Yeah, they say it.
Did they?
Yeah, well, they said that Nick Offerman as the president he was in his third term as president.
Well, yeah, but I think that was because they were in the Civil War, so he stayed in as president because they had already been, like, the fighting had already begun before. That's what I gathered from that. So I don't think him staying as in his third term was the reason. I think that he stayed in because they were in a Civil War. That was kind of what I got from it.
All right. And also to talk about the world building for this particular movie. So Josh has already mentioned the Western forces, and then the New People's Army was the northwest region of the United States, which was Washington, Oregon, and then a bunch of this, like Wyoming and all that shit. And then Western forces, of course, California and Texas. Then there was the Florida Alliance, which is Louisiana, Alabama, and a bunch of other fucking countries. And then there was the Loyalist states, which was the proper United States,
right,
which included Colorado and what was the other state that one of the
Missouri?
Yeah, so they were seen as
as the United States proper, and then everyone else was pretty much it was just California and Texas, which were basically invading everyone and just saying, fuck you guys, we're taking fucking over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it starts out where basically you get introduced, obviously to the two kind of main characters, which is fuck man, I gotta look up what their names
Kirsten
are.
Dunst.
Well, yeah, but I gotta look up what their character names are.
Oh, Lee Smith and
Civil War. Cast.
And it was Joel Wagner Mora as Joel, the Reuters. So I don't know if both of them were part of Reuters.
I think they were. I think they worked for the same place potentially.
Yeah, and then there was Jesse Cullen, played by Kaylee Spaney, and Sammy, who was the other journalist. I think a competitive journalist against the other Kirsten Dunst and the other character Wagner, or rather Joel, being played by Wagner Mora, and Sammy was this old fuck that had I think he had actually observed Kirsten Dunst's character's like career.
Yeah,
because he's on the older, he's on the older side, but she's built up to be this prolific photographer and journalist. And go ahead. And
so basically it starts off kind of where she's out. It's in New York City,
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, and they're at some protest, or it's not a protest. It's they're giving out water rations essentially, because obviously during a time of strife, food, water, all that shit, the normal supply lines are not going to be functioning properly. So therefore, the government has to give out water to people, right? So it was interesting to see when they did the drone flyover of the city as they were showing stuff. I mean, I know we saw there was a lot of tents and shit set up, right? But there's a part of me that wonders if that was just that's how it looks now, and they didn't need to do any, because there is a massive problem in not only New York City but other states as well of like homelessness. So I just thought that was interesting because it didn't look like they were. I mean, they did a good job if it was digital or if it was just they set it up in some other area and just did a flyover to make it look like they were there. But I was kind of like, oh man, I wonder if that's like actual,
like a derelict,
like an actual, like a block that's just abandoned and it's just homeless have set up a camp there and they're just fucking tent camping. So, but anyway, so then she's there filming this, photographing, I should say, this water give out, and there starts to be a problem because they're like kind of cutting it off, or they're out for the day or whatever it is. So people are getting pissed, and so they start this little mini riot. And so it's like the cops are beating up the people and the people are fighting the cops. And so someone with a proper American flag
a proper
because it is different. The Western Forces flag, it looks the same. It just has 2 stars instead of the 50 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So when they literally are running with this flag, fucking hacksaw Jim Duggan style, down the fucking ramp, all right, just running into this thing.
Oh,
yeah, and then this person's essentially a suicide bomber and just detonates themselves. Now, already right there, I was kind of like, okay, this is not starting off great, in my opinion, because I don't think that suicide bombings are something that would happen during a this type of situation. At least not here in America from an American, because that's not to me. It's not necessarily. It's not some shit that happens here, right? It's not part of our culture that happens. It's not part of our normal shit. Whereas in places where that does happen, it's kind of like the norm. That's kind of how it goes. So yes, it is terrorism, obviously, but I don't know. I was kind of like, I don't know if I buy that already. But I said, all right, whatever. Yeah, hey, it's a civil war. Fucking creative liberties. Do whatever the hell you want. So cool. It was cool to see. Don't get me wrong. It was a cool sequence. The way that this motherfucker runs out and everything's like in slow motion, and then just fucking everything detonates. It detonates and then everything goes silent, which is what happens after you're near an explosion. Like your eardrums are just essentially shocked, so you can't hear shit. And,
probably your equilibrium's fucked up.
Right, yeah, because all that's related. So like when it's like you're like, and that little buzzing or whatever, like you have that or a complete silence, and then eventually your hearing slowly comes back, and then it's not permanently gone, but yeah. So then like it kind of comes back, and then the girl who's going to be along on this journey with them,
Jessie.
Yeah.
So Jessie was, she is an aspiring photojournalist, much like Lee Smith, who, in this scene, Jessie is kind of green. She doesn't know what she's doing. I mean, she wants to be involved, but she doesn't have the savviness to realize that in a situation like this, she probably be standing like behind a car which Lee Smith, Kirsten Dunst's character, pulls the bitch behind a car to protect her from being part of the explosion. And they have a quick conversation. He's like, if I see you again, you better have Kevlar.
She gives her one of those fucking press vests or whatever. Like she gives her like, it's just like, it's not like a Kevlar vest, but it's just like a traffic control vest or whatever. And she's like, here, you fucking have this. And then she's like, if I see you, next time you better have some Kevlar on and a helmet or some shit.
And the character herself, Lee Smith, she looks like she's fucking lethargic or just apathetic towards what she's doing. Like, yeah, she's had this decorated career, but it does seem evident that the war itself is starting to get to her or something of that sort. And then they eventually make their way to, or rather, Lee Smith and Joel go to the head. I don't know what it is. It's something of a congregation of journalists hanging out.
Yeah,
at a hotel.
It's kind of like, well, in like Iraq and Afghanistan, right? When the press corps is there, or the press people are there covering the war, they usually generally all stay in the same hotel or the same couple of hotels, and then they all have these fucking parties, and they all fucking hang out and drink or do whatever right afterwards. So now that they're just basically doing that here in America, since it's become a war zone. And so they're talking to Sammy. That's when you meet him, the old guy, and they're basically talking about where they're going next. And essentially it comes out that they're going to Washington, D.C. to interview the president. That's where they're going.
And get a photo.
Yeah, and get a photo. And they're going to, and he, what's his name? Joel is going to actually interview him.
Yeah.
And so Sammy's like, you guys are fucking idiots. Like, they kill the press on site in fucking D.C. Like, he's like, no, man, it's legit. Like, we got this all. It's all approved. Like, we're fucking going. And so they're like, okay, well, maybe can I come with you? And so he's like, nah, where are you going? And he's like, oh, I need to go to Charlottesville or somewhere. He's going to like somewhere in North or South Carolina. And so,
or he says that they shouldn't go directly there because if they do, they're
going to get killed.
They're probably going to get killed. So it was kind of like an even exchange. It was,
I'll tell you the route.
Yeah. And because he wanted to get a one up on them to get, a photo and whatever he wanted to do. Because that guy Joe or I can't remember if Kirsten Dunst or Joel spilled the beans on where they're going, but he wanted to beat them to the punch.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, we're all heading the same way anyway, so we might as well fucking go together.
Right, yeah. And so then they're like, fuck, fine, you can come. Or she tells him, like, you know what, Joel, you decide what's up, and I'm leaving. So then as she's going upstairs to go to sleep or whatever, the fucking staff tells her, oh, by the way, because we did see the intermittent power outage or whatever. She said, oh, by the way, we're having these intermittent power outages, so you may want to take the stairs because it'll delay your journey quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And she's like, dude, what do you mean take the stairs? I'm on the 10th fucking floor. And he's like, well, your call.
Yeah.
And then she says, fuck. So then she's going to go start walking towards the stairs. And that's when she runs into that Jesse, the kid. And she's like, oh, hey, I wanted to give you this back. And she's like, no, keep it. And so she's like, what the fuck, you stalking me? Like, and then she kind of tells her basically like, oh, you're not my hero, but you're like, up there. And she's like, oh, and they just have a little quick conversation. And then that kind of is the end of it. And then it comes to the next morning where she's going out to get in their fucking sweet ass excursion that they got. And she gets in, and obviously the old man's in there, and then she sees the girl in the car, and she's like, what the fuck is this? She's like, Joel, come here for a minute. And what's hilarious is the back hatch is open, and that's where they're standing. So like them two can hear the whole fucking conversation. And she's like, okay, listen, I said I was cool with the old man, but now you're going to bring this fucking child along with us? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he's like, oh, she was telling me things and I was just, kind of got a little too drunk. I don't know, maybe. And, she was telling me she wants to go. What's the matter? Yeah. And so then she's like, Jesus Christ. And then she just says, whatever, man. And so then she gets in the car and she makes a comment about how the back seat is simultaneously a retirement home and a daycare. And I was like, damn, that was a good line.
Yeah. And there's man, one thing I loved about this movie is how journalism was one of the main things in the movie, right?
Right, yeah.
And talking about objectivity, she says it later in the movie is that all they're supposed to do is report what happens. That's it. Or rather capture what happens, and they leave everything else to, fucking news anchors or their boss, because they're not supposed to intervene. So like this whole movie is it's like it's weird how they fucking value life in certain scenarios. So you'll see how that unfolds.
And
but
it's interesting to see how, because she says essentially that, we don't ask why. Well, I mean, she says this later, obviously, but because there comes an issue. And the quote she says essentially is like, we don't ask why. We just report it and let everybody else. We leave that asking questions to others. Because if we do it now in the here and now, we'll never be able to do this. Like, you just can't. You just can't ask questions. You just fucking take the picture and move on. That's it.
And then and that's also to say that in the objectivity of being a photojournalist is that there has to be some type of desensitization to have personal detachment from the shit, because like you're seeing all these things happen,
right? Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, dude, this is a lot. Because there was a scene where Kirsten Dunst, or rather Lee Smith, the character she's playing, is in a bath and she's having these PTSD moments.
Yeah,
and then she meets, or rather, she has like I think maybe it was that same conversation that she was having with Jesse, that she says, "Would you have taken that photo if I would have got hit by the explosion?"
Yeah.
She said, "What do you think?"
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You have to.
So I was like, fuck, dude. From that dialogue alone, I'm like, this will come into play later.
Oh, and it does. It very much does. And so once they leave town, their first kind of stop is at this gas station, right? That's outside. It's like they're outside of New York or whatever. Because it gives you this like, the time frame doesn't tell you dates or anything like that. It just says mileage to DC. Like that's kind of where. Yeah. So you're kind of left to assume like, okay, they're kind of traveling fairly quickly. It seems like. I mean, considering they're going from New York to Washington DC, which I don't know normally what kind of a.
It just said 570, so it was like roughly.
It was like 500 miles, 600 miles, 600, which is really, when you think about it in the long run, is not that long. That should only take you. I mean, shit. you could drive 500 miles in a day easily. So, but because of the way everything is set up, you can't travel fast like that. Because obviously they come across this section right before the gas station where there's all these cars on the freeway just like fucking stalled out, blown up, whatever. And they have to cut through and do all this weird shit. So then they get to this gas station and it's a sketchy ass looking gas station. There's 3 fucking dudes sitting outside with fucking AR-15s. And they're just like, well, what do you think? And she's like, well, I don't know. And then the guy in the back, the old man, is like, well, any opportunity to get fuel you should probably take it. And so they're like, fuck, all right. So they pull off, and then she gets out. Dude walks up, and he's like, oh, hey, what's going on there? Oh, good.
Yeah, keep going.
And so then she says, hey, like, we need some gas. And he says, well, how much you got? And she's like, well, 300 and for a tank and 2 cans of gas, right? Which for the excursion, I mean, well, she said it was for a quarter of a tank and 2 cans, which is basically a quarter of a tank. I think in the excursions, you can get them with like 40-gallon gas tanks. So I'm sure they got that. So that's like 10 gallons of gas plus 2 cans, which I think their cans were 2.5 gallons on the back, maybe 5.
Yeah.
So you're getting maybe 20 gallons of gas for $300 fucking dollars. And then he laughs at her and says, ha, that'll $300. That'll buy you a sandwich. You want ham or cheese? And she says, no, Canadian. He says, okay, well, that changes things. Obviously implying that because we're in this civil war, the U.S. dollar is essentially worthless.
Tanked, yeah.
So he says, all right, fine. So then they do this deal. Well, the other girl, Jessie, she saw from the road, it was the car wash that's attached to the gas station. And it looked like all like blood and shit. And it looked like some dudes in there hanging. And so she decides she's going to go look. And so then they send one of their buddies goes and follows her. And so then Lee, she's like, well, fuck, I God damn it, I can't let this. She's like, fill up the car with gas, asshole. She tells the Joel or whatever. And then she follows her over there. And that's where you get to see Jesse's first, I don't know, interaction with trauma, I guess, because this is the first thing she's seen that's really fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, sure. Seeing the suicide bombing, all that stuff is fucked up. But to see 2 guys hanging there that they're just torturing because essentially they're looters and they're just like, we don't really know what to do with them.
You don't know if that's necessarily true either, because they could have fucking lied and they could have been enemy to whatever. Who the fuck knows? Maybe they were part of the Western Alliance. Maybe they were part of the Florida Alliance.
Or they could have just been people that those assholes didn't like. Obviously, he said, oh, I went to high school with that guy. He didn't talk to me much. He's trying to talk to me now, though.
Shit, you're right. I forgot about that part.
Could have just been dudes they didn't fucking like. I mean, who knows what the real reason why that they were actually strung up was. And so that's when you kind of see that, okay, if you want to survive, because this obviously she's lived probably within the relative safety of cities most of her life. It seems. I mean, she lived in Missouri where they didn't have this. She says both her and Lee make comments about how their parents are out pretending that this war doesn't fucking exist right now or is not even happening. Which if you're living in the middle of nowhere in Missouri or fucking Colorado, you can do that. This war is probably not affecting you much. So I'm sure she lived in the relative safety of that, and then to go from that to this now where you can see, there is no one here to it's literally the what is that, the survival of the fittest type of situation where if you aren't strong or don't have the means to do something, whoever's got the most dudes and the most guns, that's who's going to win and decide what happens. And so it does start to introduce you to the true lawlessness that really does exist within the country at this time. So
it's also great world building.
Yeah, absolutely. So after they have this gas station interaction,
don't gloss over that.
Oh, all right. Well, go ahead. What else was there?
Because Jessie was hesitant. That's right. She was hesitant about taking I mean, she was interested in, and then eventually this gentleman with a gun is looking at her like
very like predator-ish.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought she was going to get raped.
So did I. That's what I thought was about to happen.
And luckily, Lee Smith comes in and saves the day.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to, it's a movie, so they're not going to both die. So it's like, how do they get out of the situation? So luckily, Lee Smith diffuses the situation, saying, you know what? Let me take your photo. And the guy very proudly, is standing with the 2 bodies that are hanging from the rafters of the car wash or whatever. And that resolves that particular situation. So they get back in the car and then they make their way to overnight stop. And
and that's when Jessie starts going like, fuck, I didn't even take the picture. And that's when she kind of tells her about like, hey, like you can't ask why. That's when that whole kind of situation happens, right? I think.
Oh shit, we forgot one thing.
What?
God damn. Because they eventually pull over where the helicopter is, like I think it's like a Black Hawk or.
Oh yeah, that's right after that. So there's a I think it was an old Sikorsky. It was like a private helicopter.
Okay, yeah.
And it was hilariously enough, it's in a JC Penney parking lot. And I fucking hit my dad. I was like, oh, look at that. It's fucking JC Penney, man. Like, you don't see many of those anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just in the parking lot. It looked like it was an old, obviously there was a battle or some shit that happened there. So this is like the remnants of it. And so they're like taking the pictures, and that's when she's kind of like explaining to her about, you know, the not the point of the journalism, but kind of giving her the first beginnings of like taking her under her wing a little bit, you know?
Yes, but she's also saying, if you fucking get in my way,
yeah,
you're fucked. I'm not going to do anything about it. And Jesse, she's either going to nut up or she's going to shut up. And you don't really know because, I mean, at some point I was thinking she might just be a character that just gets in the way and they'll fucking offer. But then they get to the situation with... They eventually get to the overnight area, and
they're at like this. It's like a train depot or something. I think, I don't know. It's some kind of there's like trains and shit there.
Yeah.
So they get there, and then they're gonna basically spend the night, and that's when Sammy is having a heart to heart with Lee, saying like, hey, you know, and she's like, I suppose this is the part where you tell me that she doesn't, or she reminds you of me, and he's like, yeah, actually, this is the point where I tell you that, because you two aren't that different, you know? And then she's just like, God damn it. Why do you got to fucking say these things? Like, so then you see off in the distance, there's some like anti-aircraft fire, or there's some kind of battle happening in the distance. And so Joel's like, hey, look, let's go. Come on, let's go. And then Lee's like, fuck. All right, fine. I guess like, well, if they're still at it, she's like, we're not going at night. And she's like, but if they're still at it in the morning, we'll go check and see what's going on. And he was like, fuck yeah. So Jesse's in the car just chilling in the back, and that's when she has this kind of conversation with Joel about, he's like, hey, you know, we're gonna go check that out, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh, by the way, you know, I don't expect to sleep, you know, that way if you do sleep, it'll be a nice surprise. And she like kind of is asking him like, well, how do you sleep? And he's like, oh, I got Ativan. He's just like, yeah, I got to take Ativan, man. That's how I sleep.
Yeah. And Joel at this point is starting to be revealed as something of an adrenaline junkie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That he gets a kick out of seeing all this shit, but then he's also kind of hysterical.
Extremely fucking hysterical.
But it's weird to see the kind of the foil of the characters between Lee Smith, who just seems like a straight, narrow, personally detached from like everybody. She's able to maintain objectivity, and she's like, I don't care about this kid. I don't fucking care about this kid. Whatever happens. Like, I wasn't the person that fucking invited. Joel has like a heart, and he's trying to be warm to this kid to make sure that, you know, she is going to make it. Then she has at least the support, and Sammy's kind of the same way. But that'll come into play later.
Yeah. So then the morning comes, and of course they go down to this thing, and this is the first kind of real combat sequence that you get to see in the movie. And it's the Western forces, and it's basically, I don't know if they're a detached like special forces unit, but they're just wearing fucking civilian clothes. Like, they are not wearing uniforms. And we see later on the Western forces proper are actually wearing military style, you know, uniforms and stuff. But these guys are just fighting against the loyalist fucking forces, and they're just in a little bit of a gunfight. And there's a dude that's pinned down behind a beam, and they're kind of just trading rounds back and forth. And the Western forces are trying to get this guy to come. They're like, dude, just fucking come on. Like, we're right here. Just come around the corner. So they pop smoke. And what was funny is I said, man, you guys fucking immediately had this dude run the second you pop the smoke. Like, wait and let it fill out a little bit so that it actually obscures the vision of the fucking enemy who is shooting at you from an elevated fucking position. Mm-hmm. So they run, this guy comes out, he runs, and obviously he gets fucking shot, and he gets hit right through, it looks like right where the body armor isn't. It's like right through the part, like it's the side of your back, and it looks like it gets him right in the lung. And so he goes down, the other dude goes out, grabs him, and so Jesse's there also with, they all have their fucking Kevlar helmets and their vests on and shit, and so she's there trying to take pictures and shit, and she's kind of like getting out in the open a bunch, and Joel just keeps fucking grabbing her and fucking moving her to where she needs to be, like
proving her inexperience. Right. Yeah.
And so there is a moment where she does walk in front of fucking Lee when she's taking pictures, and she's just like, you see her put the camera, motherfucker, like walking right in front of me with no disregard for anybody else's, no situational awareness, basically, on the part of the young Jesse. So she's like kind of shell shocked because she's watching this guy die in front of her, and the dude, he takes off the guy's vest and he's trying to work on him, and he's trying to fucking apply a bandage, or he's trying to help this dude, and the guy just dies because it's like it's too late. Mm-hmm. They don't have the shit to take care of this dude, so it just happened too quick. He's dead. So it just bled out. So then she takes a picture and kind of goes on. Then they're going up. They're following these dudes up. They're clearing out that fucking building. So they're following them, going up. They're clearing staircases. They're doing all kinds of crazy high risk shit. And honestly, it does just show you the balls of these type of press individuals that get in with this stuff. Because I mean, these guys are in an active war zone, right? And you're following active hostile forces going into, and all it takes is one grenade drop down that stairwell and you're all dead.
Yeah.
So that does take a lot of balls. So they get up there, they hear this fucking like this fucking wailing, and I honestly thought it was a trap. I was like, oh,
me too.
This has got to be a trap, dude.
It felt like a high stress situation where I thought all these guys are going to get wiped out and the journalists are just going to be held hostage or some bullshit.
Yeah, or some shit's going to happen. That's what I thought. And so they clear up, they move up, they get in there, and it turns out it is just one of these dudes that got fucking one of the loyalist forces that just got fucking left behind. I guess they pulled out, and man, they clearly do not subscribe to that no man left behind fucking clause, because they just left that dude there to die. Mm-hmm. And so they roll up, they just kill him, and then they take a couple other dudes hostage or captive, and after the battle's done, you see Joel and then one of the guys who was like maybe in charge of them, I think. They're just kind of shooting the shit on the side. And it kind of goes into like a music sequence. And then you see them walk these dudes out with the hoods on, and they leave them there, and they just kind of like pat them on the back, and they just go, okay. And they're just standing there. And then it cuts back to this guy who's on a mounted heavy machine gun. Mm-hmm. And he's just sitting there. And then he just starts fucking lighting them up. And they just execute those dudes. No prisoners taken. Also kind of showing, I mean, really previewing the actual brutality of this war. And that's one of the things that people, not to go on like a super tangent, but people don't really realize the bloodiest battles in history that are ever fought are always Civil War type battles. I mean, yes, there have been some crazy massive losses and stuff from battles and whatnot throughout the ages. But like, if you look at the American Civil War, I mean, some of those were the most fucking violent and brutal battles that you could have possibly seen. Same thing with most countries that end up having a civil war. They are always more brutal and violent against each other than they are against a foreign enemy, which is very weird. And this movie, I think, did a really good job of capturing that. And so this is the first kind of preview you get to see of how, this is how it is. It's just brutal fucking shit.
May I interject?
Ahead, sir.
So Jesse ends up getting a photo of the dead body that was not executed, but was murdered in the building itself. The last soldier that was in the building takes a photo. Then that sequence happens with the execution of the other three loyalists to the United States. And this to me was kind of indicative about like the objectivity of journalism, is that, well, even this just this whole scene in general, is that you could easily become the subject of a photograph if you get shot, like just as much as like Jesse was willing to take a photograph of Jesse, or rather Lee taking a photo of Jesse dying because people want to see this shit. And then Joel like chopping it up with the Western forces. I don't think he should be doing that as a journalist. You shouldn't be partial to, because why the fuck was he doing that?
Well, honestly, it's because, okay, so my opinion on that is because that's you kind of collecting, because the journalists are seen as sort of impartial, right?
They're supposed to be.
Well, they're seen as a neutral. They're not an enemy combatant, so they're seen as like a neutral thing. So as you're reporting and you're seeing both sides, you're gonna start kind of making friends with people on both fucking sides of the aisle and both ends of the conflict, so that you can get the stories and you can get the insight on shit that's happening from both ends. So really, that's probably, it seemed like he obviously knew that guy. So it seemed like, oh, this is like one of his old buddies that, like, it's one of his contacts that he has, that if they, need to go somewhere, or potentially, because a lot of times when reporters are in combat zones, they're given an escort. And so this could be one of the guys. Maybe he escorted them somewhere and they became buddies. Cause obviously when you're bullshitting with somebody, like, you're going to fucking, if you're hanging out with them for a week, you're going to fucking talk to them and eventually probably become friends, especially when you're in these high stress situations. Yeah. The more people you meet, the easier it is to,
All right. There's a counter. There's a counterpoint to that.
All right.
But that won't come into play until later. So, so we have that whole fucking event of Jesse getting her first real combat situation.
Yeah.
And she's starting to come into her own professionalism, I guess you could say. And I think they make their way over to the refugee camp, which is somewhere they're just going to stay for
it's
overnight.
Like a UNICEF or something like that. It's like some kind of UN fucking...
Yeah.
It's like in a stadium of some sort. And it's just like like a refugee camp. And so they're like, oh, hey, we'll stay. They go get some food. Jesse's up there kind of, she's developing her photos, and her and Lee kind of have the beginnings of like, oh, Lee is really kind of starting to maybe care about this kid. And she's telling her about, because she has an actual film camera, not a digital camera. So she's actually developing the photos in her she has like a little mobile kit that she uses. And so she's asking her about whatever her life in her career. And she's like, oh, well, that's not fucking, didn't you say I was one of your heroes? Like you didn't read my Wikipedia page? And she's like, well, tell me the shit. Yeah. She's like, yeah. She tells her like, oh yeah, I know this, but she's like, fill in the gaps. Tell me the stuff that's not on Wikipedia. So she kind of starts telling her some shit. That's when we find out about Colorado and like her parents or whatever. They're there, and
her first major, her first major fucking achievement was getting a photo of some like Antifa massacre.
Oh yeah, the Antifa massacre or whatever. Yeah.
And she just spilling the beans on her own personal life and her career and stuff. And meanwhile, you kind of get the world building so good in this, because this is an open air stadium where all the refugees are at. They're on the football field and shit. So you see graffiti and all this shit all over the place, and it's just very cool to see. I mean, as cool as it is to see a dystopian future of America, it is cool to see that things are fucked. Like
it's cool to see that. And so then that's when we see, again, the mentor type role is really because she brings her food and says, hey, don't forget to fucking eat. Your adrenaline's always so high. Like, you got to remember to fucking eat or you'll just fucking collapse. And then that's when she's like, oh, hey, do you want to see some of these photos finally? Because it looks like some of them are done. And she's looking through them and she's like, man, these are all shit. And then she tells her, well, you figure like the strike rate is like 1 to fucking 30 of like keepers to throwaways. And they're going through, and she finds, again, like the one in that 30 that's like the perfect photo, and that's of that guy dying. And she's just kind of like staring at it and looking at it. And then that's when, what did she tell her? Did she tell her something about that? Or did they just fucking move on from that?
I think she saw her potential. She said, oh, that's a great photo.
Yeah, that's what she told her. She told her that was a great photo. Yeah.
And I do have one other thing to add. To me, the scene where Jesse is sitting underneath a rainbow on the building.
Oh, yeah.
That to me, because that was her first experience with combat and just trauma and shit in general. Aside from the guy, the suicide bomber.
Yeah.
That was, to me, the loss of innocence right there. That's when she became an adult to me.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and it was cool to see that.
Yeah.
And then she tells her something about, well, because there was another thing where she says, oh, I won't make that mistake again, about like something. What does she tell her? Lee tells her something that she fucking did wrong. Or she tells her, or that was when they were having that conversation about the why, asking the why. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, I won't make that mistake again. And that's when you start to see Lee really go like, okay, maybe there is something here with this kid.
Yeah.
So then after the sequence of them going to the, they spend the night in this fucking stadium, and then they move out and they go to, this is where they come across this weird what is it? Like it's like a Winter Wonderland fucking thing, right?
Yeah, they don't exactly know if this piece of land belongs to the Loyalists or some other forces.
Yeah.
So it's no man's land for all intents and purposes, as far as they
Right,
know.
yeah.
And they were already suspicious. So they're creeping up over by the gate of this, fake Wonderland thing going on. And they get shot at from,
Okay, so they see there's a body. There's a dead body of someone in a uniform laying in the middle of the road. And they're like, Jesus Christ, okay. And they're like, well, what do we do? Is this a trap? Like, what do you guys think? And he's like, the old man's like, I think there was a road back there that had a fork. We could go down that way. And what's also weird is, okay, so obviously all this shit, there was noise and there was the bubbles, both things of which require power. So obviously, that there's fucking people here. And so I would have been like, nope, we're turning right the fuck around. But as they're dicking around making this decision, that's when, like you said, they get shot at. They start getting shot at. So then they haul ass. And once you make contact, that's all you can do is you can just push to cover. That's all you can do. So Joel does the right thing and he just fucking hauls ass. And they get in behind this cover of one of the little buildings in like this big ass truck. It's like a water truck or something, or a tanker truck. And so they get behind it and then they fucking get out. And as they get out, they're like, what the fuck is going on? And they look over and they see two dudes in ghillie suits, like it's a scout sniper team, and they're just there. And they're like, oh, fuck. So then Joel runs up to him and he says, hey, what's going on here? And then the dude, like, who's on the spotter scope just looks at him and he says, well, there's a guy in there and he's got a gun. And he's like, yeah, I get that. But like, what? He's like, well, he's trying to kill us. We're trying to kill him. And he's like, hey, look, he pulls out his badge. He's like, we're pressed. And then he looks at him. He goes, oh, I guess that explains why it's plastered all over your vehicle then. Man, thanks for letting me know that. And then Joel says something else and he looks at him and he says, oh, I guess you're retarded, aren't you? And he's like, that guy in there. He's like, oh, because he asked him who they report to.
Who's their side?
Yeah, he's like, who are you guys taking orders from? He looks at him and he says, oh, yeah, you're retarded, aren't you? He's like, orders. He's like, there's no orders here. He's like, that guy's trying to kill us and we're trying to kill him. That's it. And he's like, this guy's pretty good. So he's like, I don't know if we're gonna get him. Like,
Yeah.
So then as they're having this conversation, the dude on the rifle pulls the trigger and he's like, well, I got some good news. Like, I got him. And he's like, all right. So then, but it's funny because what's her name? Jessie is like fucking, she's like taking pictures. She's out. She's beginning to look like she kind of maybe knows what she's doing from that last battle, or she's starting to get it. You know what I'm saying? And so that sequence ends, and then
Lee Smith is not taking photos.
She's not even involved.
She just, I don't know, man. She's zoned out. She's zoned out. She's looking at flowers, and then Jesse becomes out of focus, and then life or the flowers become the focus. Like I don't know, man. She's starting to lose it. So as Jesse is rising and gaining more confidence, Jesse's fallen away, kind of not caring about her own job.
Yeah, basically, and just saying, whatever. I'm here just observing the scenery. So after that sequence, that's when they're driving and they start getting followed, right? Or was there something in between that?
Yeah, there was something in between that. So I don't remember if this happens just before or after, but they end up visiting a small town.
Oh, that was right after, I think. That was right after this. I think it was right after this.
It was either before or after.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I don't remember what's.
I'll look it up. But
yeah, they visit this town and they fucking get out and everything's completely normal. Everything looks great. There's people going around. There's fucking people walking the streets. There's some old lady walking her dog. And they're looking around. They're like, what the fuck is going on? So they get out and they go into a store and they walk in and there's some like teenage girl at this. It's like some sort of I don't know. It's like a beauty salon or something like that. Or not a beauty. It's like a not a thrift store, but it's like a clothing store. So they get out. They go in and they look and Joel walks up to her and she's just sitting there reading some book. Like, typical snarky teenager just chomping on gum, looks up from the book, goes, welcome, look around, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, you guys are aware that, there's a war going on out there, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, so, what the fuck? And she's like, well, we've just figured it's best to stay out of it. And he's like, stay out of it. The fuck? And so then Lee and Jesse are having this kind of conversation. Jesse gets her to try on this dress. And she tries it on and she's like, oh, I want to take your picture. And she's like, no. And she's like, hey, come on, smile. And she's like, no. She says some shit and then she like smiles, click. And then they're talking about like the perfect moment of like a photo. And she's like, oh, you already missed your perfect moment. And she's like, oh, really? Did I? And she makes, I forget what she says to her, but something that makes her laugh. And she fucking smiles and she takes your picture again. She's like, oh, you're really pretty when you smile. And then she's like, oh, like she starts to, and then click, she clicks another one. And then she's just like, all right. And then she's like, well, all right, well, and then Joel comes up and he's like, hey, what about me? Look at this hat that I got. And she's like, I'm not talking to you.
I ran out of film.
Yeah. And that's right. She said, I ran out of film.
That was hilarious.
And he's like, oh, damn. And so he's like, fuck this. And he picks that up and he just walks out.
Yeah.
And then, oh, good.
All right. This scene, another scene about objectivity and morality. So Lee is telling her, I don't want you to take my photograph.
Yeah.
And that to me was telling that the rules do not apply to me.
Yeah.
Rules apply to thee and not to me.
Yeah. Rules for me, rules for thee, rules for thee, but none for me.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that they had that conversation at the beginning of the film. And she's, I would take your photo if you fucking died in the explosion.
Yeah.
And then when she's in the situation where she's the subject of a photo, you know, she's
like, I don't want
my photo taken.
Oh, well, how do you think all these other assholes that you're taking pictures of for your entire career do? Oh, do you think they wanted their photo taken, you know?
Yeah. So they're always dancing with this really fine line, between all the characters and stuff. Because they're growing an attachment for Jessie herself. And
right.
Yeah. It like, I don't know, man. It just makes for a really interesting dynamic and even the themes that are being played out in the dialogue and shit.
Yeah. So then that's when they go outside and Sammy's outside of the car smoking a cigarette and they're talking and she's like, I can't fucking believe this place. And he's like, well, listen, it's not all like it seems. He's like, take a look at the rooftops, but don't make it obvious. So he hands her the cigarettes and she's like, takes a drag and she just kind of looks around so that, and then the camera slowly pans up and it was pretty sweet. And you see these two dudes with rifles on top of one of the buildings, just checking them out. And you're like, oh, okay, this is definitely not, this is not what it fucking seems.
Yeah. And the meat of the conversation was Sammy had said something, or rather Joel had said, he's like, damn, or no, it was Lee.
Yeah.
Lee had said, wow, it's like all the things I had forgotten about.
Right.
And then Sammy's like, damn, it's like everything I remember.
Like, oh, yeah,
and he's like, look at the fucking roof.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, that's funny. It sounds like all the things I remember,
Yeah.
And so then after that little sequence and they leave the town, that's when we get into them being followed on the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Lee's driving and she's like, just whatever. And you see this fucking car kind of creeping up on them in the background. And then she's like, hey, I think we're being followed. And so then Sammy looks back and then whatever. They're like, oh shit, we are. And then he's like, oh, maybe they're just, going somewhere or whatever. And she's like, yeah. And then the car starts hauling ass and fucking gets up right up to them. And she's like, oh, guess he doesn't want to whatever. And so they're telling her like roll the window down. And so then it turns out that it's a buddy of fucking theirs. It's another like reporter duo. And they're just, I don't know why the fuck you wouldn't just pull your cars over and instead you're doing like fucking 70 miles an hour. And the dude's like, oh, I'm coming over. It's hard to talk. So she's like, what? No. And so then he just jumps over from car to car and just gets in the back seat. And then Jesse's like, oh, I'm going to do it. And so then she jumps in his car. And then that guy who's the driver of that car, he's like, oh, this much better company. See you guys. And he just fucking hauls ass and is gone. And they're like, what the fuck? So they're driving after them and they're like, dude, what the fuck? Where are they? And so as they're driving, this fucking it's a military kind of semi truck comes and just fucking almost just runs them off the road. Basically, they don't crash, back up, get on the road, haul ass. And then they get to this intersection and they see their car that they were in. And it's the guy who's the reporter, the Asian reporter dude, and Jesse. It's that car and the doors are open and there's no one around. And they're like, motherfuckers. So they're like, well, I guess we got to go look. So they go get out and look. And what do they see? They see them two fucking idiots getting fucking rolled up by, I think this was the Western forces. I'm not 100% sure. Because they had so one of the things that was really cool, and I hope they did this on purpose, was all those dudes, if you looked at their uniforms, none of them had name tags, ranks, or their affiliation of what military they were with. All that shit was blank. And so, because it's just, it's like the Velcro where that shit goes. So all that shit was, they took off all their shit to do this mass burial, which if you're going to do some sketchy war crimes type shit, yeah, you don't want fucking nobody know whose side you're on or who you are. So, I think that they were with the Western forces because that was the area that they were kind of in.
Charlottesville. Oh, I don't know if they were at Charlottesville. Okay, I think. All right, I'm going to debate you on that one.
All right,
because, well, if you still want to go ahead and describe.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just going to say the only reason I think maybe they were part of the Loyalists because he said Colorado's good and Missouri's good, and that was part of the Loyalist alliance, which is like the true United States, the one everybody's rebelling against or seceding from. So he told that he's like, oh, Colorado's good, fucking Missouri's good, and he said Florida was all right, which Joel was from. But then they got to the journalists because they get
those guys are not, those guys are like Chinese or from Hong Kong or whatever, right?
Yeah,
so they're not from here.
Yeah, he's like, this guy's your buddy? And he's like, yeah, say I see my buddy. And bam, he just shoots that fucking
dude.
Lit him up,
kills him. And then the other guy's hysterical, fucking crying, his buddy. And so he's asking him, where's he from? He's like, where you from, motherfucker? What hood you claim? Like, what? Like, that's what it felt like. I felt like he was going to ask him what set he rolls or some shit. And then he tells him, Hong Kong. And he's like, Hong Kong. He's like, that's a shame. And he just shoots him right in the head. And so then that's when they're like, well, now you've seen me kill these two guys, so I guess I'm gonna have to kill you too. And then just fucking out of nowhere, RKO out of nowhere, fucking Sammy with the fucking big ass car just fucking runs this dude and his buddy over. And then they're like, holy shit. And he's like yelling out the car, get in the fucking car, just get in the car. And so they're like in shock. Well, Jesse falls into the mass grave.
A mass fucking grave.
And she's just like fucking kind of shell shocked. So Joel like looks in there, fucking grabs her. They run to the car. The dude who was in the truck gets out and he's like, oh shit. And he grabs a rifle. He starts shooting at them as they're driving away. They go and then they're driving and Lee's like, oh, I can't drive anymore. And they're like, what do you mean? Just keep driving. He's like, I can't. And she's like, oh, Lee sees that he's been hit. And so they're like, fuck. So they pull him out, put him in the back seat, and they haul ass to the Charlottesville, which was the closest base or whatever that they knew about. And unfortunately, they don't get there in time. Sammy's dead before they even fucking get there. And so he bleeds out because he got shot fucking basically in the chest.
Yeah, there was like this really interesting scene where they're driving through a forest with flame, just engulfed in flames, and there's music playing and stuff, and you just see Sammy reaching out and there was glass in front of his fingers or whatever, but he's kind of reaching the end of his life. He's like, man, it was just kind of a really interesting juxtaposition to have all this chaos happening with flames and stuff. He's like, this is kind of beautiful, like the fucking trees lit on fire or engulfed in flames. Then they make it to the Western Forces encampment, and then Sammy dies, and man, they're all fucking tripping balls, or rather Joel is losing his shit. He's fucking drunk out of his mind. And I think Lee probably handled it a little bit better because she was just whatever about it. She took the photo of Sammy being dead. Yeah. And then she just decides, contemplating on whether she wants to keep it or not. And then she deletes it. And then she meets up with Jesse.
Well, yeah. And then Joel finds out through their embedded reporters that are there that basically that Washington surrendered. And that this is it. This is the end of it. They're going to go there and they're going to fucking go, or they're going to go get him. They're going to go fucking. And he's like, well, fuck. And he's like, well, this is it. Like, the whole point of us going there is fucking is done. Like, Sammy died for nothing. Like we fucking didn't get what we needed. And so now he's just like, fucking shit. And they're basically telling him like, oh yeah, like it's a capture, it's no capture, it's kill order on site, because they were like, what are they going to do with them? And they're like, oh, I don't know, but capture, it's no capture, it's kill on site for the president. And so he's like, fuck. So he's like, we gotta go, we gotta fucking get there. And so that's when they kind of all make the decision, like, all right, fuck it, like we're gonna fucking roll out with these dudes and haul ass to get there.
Yeah,
because they're leaving this base to go essentially invade Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and just to quickly talk about some of the world building for this shit and even the interactions with the characters. So the guys, what do you think about the guys from Hong Kong? Because even though they're journalists and they're supposed to be impartial, would you be impartial to, because they do say in a quick piece of dialogue that the whatever alliance is in the Pacific Northwest is Maoist.
Yeah,
or some
the
shit
Maoist
like that.
Alliance. I think they directly call it that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the United States is divided already, but the fact that they had journalists that they're friends with from Hong Kong was, to me, strange because, well, I don't know.
Well, it's just like those dickheads that were embedded. They were one chick was English, and then the other guy I think was from here or whatever, but she was British or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like all the foreign reporters, like I'm sure there's Russian, there's French, there's fucking, I'm sure there's all these foreign, because just like how when we go into war in the Middle East, right? All the foreign countries have all their reporters go there.
Yeah,
so like if there was a civil war here, that same shit would happen. And I honestly don't know if the press would be treated as well, seemingly.
I just don't know, man.
As they were in this situation.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. Just the fact that there's friendships across nations. And
see, that's the thing. In journalism, they have that luxury. Whereas like those guys who are killing those dudes, like they know, oh, foreigner, enemy. Like we're in a civil war with ourselves.
Yeah.
So if anyone's here from another country, they can't be here to do any good for us. They're obviously here to take advantage of us. So you just die. You just get to die, right? That's kind of the mentality that they have. And I think that's indicative of something that would probably be realistic if it, did happen in real life.
Yeah. So I was just kind of I'm just amazed that there is friendships that exist within the journalist community when there's so many sides to pick and you're like, not that you're betting on a horse, but you're American in some way. And then you have other countries that are coming in and shit. And the two characters that they were like reporting like, hey, something's happening in DC. Like this is the end. This is the end or whatever. And they're not even from here. And I don't know. They're all doing their job, but it's just a really interesting dynamic that exists within all the journalists and stuff. And yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add.
Agreed. And so anyways, so then that's when they fucking just go to Washington, DC, and they get there. And now they're in with the unit that is basically the tip of the spear that is doing the invasion.
Oh my God, dude. The last third of the movie, third act is fucking amazing, dude.
So good, yeah.
It's so like one of the opening sequences is like the Lincoln Monument.
Yeah.
This guy shoots a fucking RPG
and just takes it down.
Oh man, it's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. He shoots it's a javelin fucking missile system is what he shoots at it, and he just fucking he just takes out half the fucking Lincoln fucking memorial.
Yeah,
and it was fucking cool as shit to see that. And then they're talking about essentially what forces are there, and they're like, oh, it's basically just the diehards and some Secret Service that are still there in Washington to defend the president.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in DC Central, downtown, whatever. They start pushing through. There's a cool little sequence where this is when you start to see Lee kind of lose it.
Yep.
And she starts checking out like real hard at this first battle where they're on the street level, and there's a couple of I think they were machine gun positions that were set up inside these parking structures. They were on like the second or third floor of the parking structure. And so they're shooting down into this kill box that they created. And essentially these guys are like pinned down and they can't fucking do shit. Well, a goddamn Apache fucking helicopter comes in the middle of these buildings and just gets to their level and just starts unloading with the machine guns or the minigun, and then just fucking tosses rockets at them. And it was cool as shit to see that. And so then the tanks start rolling in, and then Lee's just kind of fucking checking out. And Jesse is like, oh, she's really into it, like taking pictures, doing all this shit. And so they get in with the push that's going right into the White House complex. And it's cool to see how they like fortified it, and it's all set up with, barricades and shit like that. And so they're trying to get into this entryway, which is basically set off by these two fucking concrete barriers. And there's a guardhouse, right? And so the guardhouse is just lighting them up. And so these dudes, they roll up with the couple machine guns on these Humvees, and the dudes in the thing launch a fucking RPG at them and blow up one of blow up one of the cars. Lee's just like crying hysterically. Like she's fucking having a panic attack basically at this point, it seems like. And it's like all the last however many years she's been doing this are now catching up with her right in this singular fucking moment.
Yeah.
And Jesse is like, oh, I'm still taking pictures. And so she just she just keeps taking pictures of shit, getting in the way. Fucking Joel has to keep grabbing her to fucking pull her aside. But she is basically, he's dealing with Lee. He's trying to like get her to fucking, he's like,
snap
okay,
out of it.
He's like, well, fuck, she's toast. So like, I guess we just gotta fucking figure this out. So then they bring in, there's like, I think it's another like a Western Forces Special Forces team that comes in and they're like, oh, we're here to help. What do you guys need? And they're like, fuck, we got to take out that house. So then they roll up with a fucking, another missile fucking launcher and they just fucking blow up the guardhouse. And then the tanks come in. They start, right before that, that's when they see the president's coming out. Oh, they got the Beast rolled up, and so they got these two Suburbans and then the Beast, which is the big ass presidential limo. So they haul ass out of the fucking White House, man, and they just get lit the fuck up, just completely decimated. And they're like, holy shit, they're gonna kill the president. And then that's when Lee snaps out of it, and she's like, he ain't in there. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, they're not in there. Let's go. So he's like, fuck, all right. So Joel, Jesse, and her, they run and go to the White House because it's all wide open now. So they go run in. So the Special Forces team, the team leader, he looks and he's like, where the fuck are these reporters going? And he's like, hey, let's follow them. So they follow him in and they get in there. First, the reporters get in there and they see it's just like there's dead bodies everywhere. There's fucking, I don't know if people killed themselves or if they were just shot because they were maybe considering surrendering or some shit. Who knows? So they're like, fuck, whatever. So they go through and they end up making contact with some Secret Service guys and the Special Forces team. They're in this gunfight, fighting it out. And basically that's when they're in this hallway and the Special Forces team, there's like a pause in firing. And then Jesse goes out to take this picture. Right? Isn't that what?
No, they get to the press secretary first, and she's trying to negotiate the president's surrender, and then they light her up, and then they get to that sequence where they fight the Secret Service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that happened after.
No, that happened before. Because there was like multiple battles that were happening in the hallway. One of them was just before the press secretary getting lit up, and then they had another one.
And that's the one where this happens, where Jesse goes like out to take a picture or whatever, and fucking she's gonna get lit up because the Secret Service is now about to return fire, and so Lee goes and like fucking knocks her on the ground, and then like she gets hit obviously, and then fucking what's her name, Jesse takes two pictures of her, and they show the pictures too, like as she takes them, like they show it, of her like, and then she just falls dead right next to her, and then those guys take those dudes out, and then they just basically all go in, and she just leaves her fucking for dead, and they just fucking go run in, and you see fucking Nick Offerman, who's the president, and he's like standing there, and fucking they're gonna straight kill him, and Joel's like, nope, fucking wait. And he walks up to him and he's like, motherfucker, I need a quote. And he looks at him and he says, don't let them kill me. And he just goes, good enough. And then they fucking execute him, and Jesse takes the picture. And fucking obviously it's Joel, the two Special Forces, and then the one lady who actually kills him right in this photo. And so that's where the movie ends. It ends right there.
Yeah. And
obviously this is like, oh, this is going to be now Lee is dead. Now this girl, this is the photo. It's like Lee has passed on her career to this girl now. Basically is the way I see it. I mean, if she is dead, because obviously she was wearing a vest, and listen, she didn't get hit in the face because nothing exploded out of there. She didn't get hit in any of the legs. There was no blood. So she could have just been knocked out, because that could happen if you get hit with a, the Secret Services use those P90s. I mean, or some of them use those MP5s, 9mm. Her vest could take the 9mm. And if you get hit, it hurts. Like it'll knock the wind out of you. So if it knocks the wind out of you and you pass out, okay, cool. You could just, pass out. Like, so there's a possibility she could, but it's open-ended. There is no resolution to this other than the president's dead. That's the only resolution we get. But
yeah, I
kind of feel like if she is dead, then this is the moment that it's now Lee has passed on her career essentially to this girl, because now this photo is the Antifa massacre photo
It's the start
for
of
this
her,
girl.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of her. It's her launch pad to now what's going to be her probably stellar career.
I think it might be the old, like an older generation, in a situation where, let's say, a grandpa is with a child and the child runs out in the street.
Right.
The grandpa, without hesitation, would push out the fucking kid and because it doesn't make sense for an older person to fucking live out 5-10 years. And that's kind of the same situation with Lee, is that she already had PTSD and she's already checking out from her job. It's like, fuck, might as well save
this kid.
Yeah. Like, she doesn't deserve to fucking die for this. And then to me, it was a little disrespectful that fucking Jesse took the photo because, again, maybe it's a little bit of revenge or retribution, because at the beginning of the movie, Lee said, Jesse said, if I was in that situation where if I was near the blast, would you take my photo? And then the opposite.
Right. That's situation. Where I think that played in at the end here was like, that was like.
But she also was just kind of disillusioned after she took the photos.
Right.
So I don't know how that reads.
Yeah, I don't really know either. I mean, it could be that she was just putting it aside and just now she has become a calloused fucking, individual like Lee was, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And then of course the last photo in the movie is this is the part that I was contemplative about, is that Joel shouldn't be in the fucking photo, but he's become a subject in the photo and part of the fucking story. I don't know if that's out of vanity or what, to be, chopping it up and standing over the body or behind the body of the president. But I
don't think that was intentional on his part. I think he just was like, I need to get the quote because I need to make this worth it. Because technically I can say I interviewed the president right before.
Yeah, and also the photo would prove that. But
right, yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of like asshole-ish that he did that, because
he is also kind of an asshole. So.
He's supposed to maintain the objectivity of not being part of this. Like, he's the observer.
Yeah.
So then he shouldn't be part of that. That was the part that like kind of got to me, was at the end of the movie. But I don't know, it just kind of blurs the lines of morality, like whose life is valued, whose isn't,
right? Yeah.
And all that shit.
Oh, that's true. I agree with you on that. I think that does definitely. It does blur the lines a little bit. And again, yeah, as being the press, you're supposed to be neutral and impartial. But
he's chopping up with the Western forces, dude.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay, look, here's the thing, though. As we all see, the press is not neutral and the press is not fucking biased. The press is biased.
Yeah.
So how would why should we expect that this guy should actually be biased? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe he is all about the Western forces. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. And throughout the movie, there's... When the photos are being taken, you really get to like those freeze frames. That moment gets to see, like, it gets to breathe. You take it in, and you really get to savor that particular moment. And you really savor the moment when Lee Smith dies, as Jesse's taken.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very strong tool within the movie to let the most pivotal moments of the film, to let them actually sink in, to have those freeze frames. And I mean, dude, there was the beginning of the movie where some guy was on fire. Like,
oh yeah, that was cool.
He was trapped in a tire,
dude. It was like her flashbacks of her taking photos throughout her career.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were like, I don't know, executing this guy or whatever. And they just threw a tire on him and then just fucking doused him in gasoline and just lit him on fire, which is a real way that they fucking execute people in like South Africa or, the Middle East and shit. Like they love to do that shit.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention, the start of the movie opened with Nick Offerman as president going over his speech, spreading propaganda to say that the loyalists, the true United States, I guess you could say, has never been closer to victory. But he's like,
it was such a lie,
cracking. He's cracking. And there is some part in the movie where I think Sammy says all dictators fall, and they're very weak in their last moments or whatever, and that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what did you enjoy about the movie? What
So I did enjoy the combat sequences. I thought they were pretty cool. They were nice. I felt like the movie was marketed to, in my opinion, as an action combat movie, right? That's all you really saw in the commercials. So I was going into this expecting a lot of combat, and then we didn't get a lot. To me, it kind of was like Napoleon, where not that I'm comparing it to that, but in terms of Napoleon was marketed, I thought it was just going to be a straight war movie, and it turned out to be something basically completely different. But the action sequences that were in Napoleon were fucking amazing. There were very few of them, but they were fucking awesome. And this movie didn't suffer from that in the sense of, yes, I did feel like there weren't enough action sequences for what I was kind of like going in expecting. But the actual good story that existed throughout this, well, it made up for it. Whereas Napoleon didn't have a fucking decent, it had a shitty story.
Yeah.
On top of that. So there was nothing in between the action sequences to keep me interested. This had very much, I thought they were spread out pretty good. There was the one we got right at the beginning with the suicide bombing. Then there was the first combat experience that she has. Then there's them getting into that little sniper deal. And then there's them getting fucking shot at by those dudes in the thing. And then at the end, the final battle or whatever. So, I mean, I thought they were pretty well spaced out in between narrative and like combat sequences, which is pretty cool. So I did like the fact that they did a good job with it on the combat. I just didn't like. I thought there should have been more, but that's just what I was going in expecting. So I can't fault them for that, because I could fault what's the word I'm looking for, the marketing department for making this look like it's just a fucking straight up action movie. And again, the reviews all at the beginning, the critic reviews all were, because I did see a couple of them, and I looked at them after, and they all were saying basically, oh, this is a straight action packed wall to wall, and I'm like, that was not what this fucking. I was like, did we watch the same fucking movie? This was not an action-packed wall-to-wall fucking thrill ride. So I think I went in there with an expectation that I shouldn't have had, but I'm not going to discount and knock the movie for it. I'm just saying that was the expectation I went in with and didn't quite get exactly that. So I don't know. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, that's all. That's all you had to say about the movie itself.
Oh, I mean, I thought, you want me to give it like the score?
No, not the score. I'm asking if you had anything else to add about the good and bad of the movie.
Again, I thought the actors were great. That was another thing that was a pretty good point. I don't really know who. I mean, I think that girl's been in other stuff. The one who played Jessie, I think, but like I don't really remember exactly what she's been in. So
yeah.
But I mean, everybody did a great job for all the characters that they were supposed to portray. I thought it was just fucking right with the length, because it was like an hour and I think like 50 minutes or something like that. And I thought that was fucking perfect.
Yeah.
I said, I was like, shit, any longer and this would have been starting to take points off. Any less, probably wouldn't have had enough time to tell the story. So I think they did the perfect amount of story, or length, I should say. The cinematography was really cool. The soundtrack was also good too. I felt like that the way they did the cinematography with the, like that thing where you talk about where the photos would come in when she would take the photos, as she would take them, it would like freeze frame black and white, and it would like still, and then that was cool to see.
Yeah.
I don't know, nothing else I can think off the top of my head, but anyways, go ahead.
I thought the movies, I didn't like the opening part of the movie with the president going over his speech. I felt that felt flat for me personally.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of the opening part after the explosion, when Lee's in her hotel room and she's just kind of not caring about her own job. She's like, all right, well, we got to go do this fucking thing. I got to get the photo for the president being fucking killed or whatever. But then after that, it started to ramp up in terms of the adrenaline scenes with the combat within the office building when the Western forces take on the loyalists or whatever. That was cool. And it just kept fucking building up. And I didn't actually think they were going to end up having the climax being in the front lines of the president being assassinated or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, holy shit, they actually did it. Because complete misdirection to say that they had already missed their opportunity when they were with the Western Forces encampment. I'm like, I'm like, all right, maybe this movie isn't going to be about the president fucking being murdered. But once it got to that point, I was like, oh, holy shit, this is badass. And I had no expectations for the movie itself. I didn't look at reviews or anything like that. So I didn't have any of the preconceived notions or expectations about the movie as you did. And I'm actually very glad that this ended up being character based and not just a whole fucking movie of senseless warfare, because then it just becomes an action movie that I probably wouldn't have been engaged in. So you end up sitting with all these characters, Lee, Jesse, and Joel and Sammy, and appreciating them and how they view human life, like and then what else was there? The music, I wasn't too much of a fan of the soundtrack of the movie. I actually kind of I don't want to say I hated it, but I didn't like it. Yeah, but the world building for the movie I thought was really cool, to have the flags show, you know, what the alliances were and stuff, and then going into the different towns to see how people were coping or dealing with some of the situations, you know, when they visit the small town and there's people that are completely disconnected from reality itself. And then the guys at the gas station, I don't know what alliance they were with, but they were like Southerners or Hicks or hillbillies or whatever the fuck they were. But it was just all the different environments that they ended up in was just really cool. I don't know what else to add about the movie, but yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So are we getting towards the...
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty much wrapped up with this. So what score would you give it?
I don't know. I was... The things that I can ding it for is, again, the soundtrack. I didn't really care for that. Maybe for the opening portion of the movie, maybe the opening portion of the movie, I thought I could ding it for. So I don't know. I'm sitting between. I'm like, I want to do a range. I'm thinking it's like 8.5 to a 9, but the music is the part that I wasn't really enjoying all that much, but I enjoyed the characters. I thought it was cool to make it about the story was crafted around the journalist, because that would allow them to walk amongst the different worlds within the divided United States.
Yeah.
I thought the fucking climax of the movie was fucking excellent, because I didn't have any expectations. So I thought it executed the third act brilliantly.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I would give it, like, if we're doing ranges, I was going to go with a solid 8. Like, right, or I want to do like an 8.25, right? Because I feel like it's right in between an 8 and 8.5. And for me, it's just because, again, this is kind of a movie that I wouldn't go see this movie again. Like, I don't think this is a movie I could go watch again, because it's like, you already kind of know what happens. It's kind of pointless to watch it again. But it was a good movie. I was definitely sports entertained, that's for sure. So I thought that, the soundtrack was okay. I did like the cinematography, and I liked the combat sequences. So that's kind of where the 8, and then the pacing of it was good, and the length. So, but yeah, I'm dinging it on the, I guess the opening was a little bit like, you know, I agree with you. It's kind of maybe a little unnecessary, unless they were just trying to show you that this guy's the villain, basically, or I don't know, which I was hoping that we wouldn't have the movie wouldn't push which side was right. I was hoping that it would just be, oh, you just get to decide which side, you know, but then it was even better because they didn't even say really, I mean, what each side was really technically fighting for, I guess. So you really don't know who was right, I guess, in the end of it. So, but yeah, I give Assault like 8 to 8.5. So it's good. I would recommend people to see it. That's for sure. Especially because, you know, it's not a sequel, a prequel, or a fucking remake.
Shit, man. I don't know what else to add about the movie other than that's probably the score I'm probably going to stick with. I hope I'm not forgetting something that I end up saying at the fucking on the next episode of when we review a movie, because there's sometimes we do this shit
And then you just
and I
forget.
think about all the stuff I wanted to say fucking afterwards.
Well, that's why we have the beginning of the episode where you can like say that. You can fucking put in if you forgot some shit,
yeah.
you can add. You can do. It's like the addendum
It's
to the
a-
episodes.
yeah.
You know, is at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
The shameless plugs and addendums to previous episodes.
Yeah, so I would say go fucking watch it. It's worth the price of admission. And yeah, I give it an 8.5 to a fucking 9, but I'm probably leaning more towards 8.5.
Yeah, and if anybody at 824 listens to this and wants to do an interview, I don't care if you're the mailboy or fucking the head of the company. If you want to do an interview, hit us up on our social media. Send us a DM at Game Rage Magazine, and we'd like to talk. Kind of fun. Anyways, all right. Well, that's it for us on this episode. So stay tuned for next week, where we're gonna. Well, the next episode of this will be the Shogun final. Yeah, the finale 2 episodes. So, all right, cool. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Oh, hey there, buddy. It's me, 1930s announcer guy, here to congratulate you on making it through this episode. As our heroes are getting in their jalopies and riding off into the literal sunset, they wanted me to tell you thanks for listening to their radio broadcast, and should you be so kind as to follow them on some fancy schmancy radio station publication called Instagram and TikTok at Game Range Magazine, and on some other thing called Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Also, they wanted me to inform you and ask if you could be so kind again as to visit something called a website at www.GameRageMagazine.com. I don't know what that is, buddy, but you should probably go do those things. And, don't forget to tune in next time to the Game Rage Movies and TV radio broadcast.